Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Health Movement Podcast. This is episode number 28. I'm Derek. I am a two-sport collegiate athlete, certified personal trainer, and a teacher of over 20 years. And as always, we are not doctors or nutritionists. So before you change anything, programming, your diet, anything like that, please check with your doctor. Tim cannot join us this evening, but I do have an awesome guest with us tonight, and I wrote down all the stuff that is listed. Nicole Adach, and there's quite a bit, so bear with me. A mental skills coach, a mindset coach, a wellness coach, psychotherapist, personal trainer, sports psychologist, camp counselor, basketball coach, and starting soon at Northeastern University, a psychotherapist for student athletes. Nicole, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And it sounds like a lot more than what it feels like. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I had to throw the camp counselor thing in there. I did that for a number of years. It's a lot of fun. There's so much there. But the mindset coach, the focusing on the mental aspect of athletics, seems to be a big part of what's going to be happening coming up for you. So I didn't know if you wanted to dive into that a little bit and tell me your thoughts on that, or what your mindset is going into that.
Yeah, it's funny. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk. Anytime I can talk shop with someone else who has similar background or interest, I'm always like totally game. So my career path's been, it feels like it's been like not necessarily traditional. And I think that's why that list feels so long, because I've kind of dabbled in a bunch of different areas, but they've always all had this like theme of mind and body and like getting better. So when I started this professional journey, I was an athlete myself. I played basketball in college, and I always like knew the mind was important. Like, oh, be confident, or oh, like brush it off, or drop it at the door. Like, you hear these phrases as an athlete. But I never learned like the execution part, like how to do that. It was always like the what, like you need to train your mind, you need to be more confident, you need to have a strong mindset, but there was never like, okay, now how do I actually go about doing it? So my career now as a mental skills coach and mindset coach, psychotherapist for the athletes, whatever, they're all kind of essentially saying the same thing. So you can say whatever one feels the most easy on the tongue. But my thought is that we're all taught as athletes, or we're all taught as people, how to train our bodies physically. Like, you're a certified trainer, if Sally comes into the gym and wants to get stronger or wants to have a higher muscle, oh my gosh, it's been years, less body fat percentage and more muscle, her body comp, she wants to change it. You know exactly kind of how to program for her. There's nutrition conversations. Like if she wants stronger legs, let's do some lunges, let's do squats, deadlifts, etc. When an athlete is told like, hey, they need to be like more confident or more focused or more present or less distracted, whatever it might be, athletes just kind of nod along and say like, yeah, you're right. Like, I need to be more confident. And there's never like, or there hasn't been like, in my experience as an athlete, a lot of education or blueprint around how to actually train your mind. So my job now is that I get to teach athletes how to train their minds, and non-athletes. I've worked with non-athletes as well.
Yeah.
But really kind of thinking of the mind as you think of the body, and intentionally training it, taking care of it, strengthening it. So that's kind of how I see the work that I do, is really just helping individuals essentially become the best version of themselves that they can. And that requires
can I ask you then, and it seems like a good follow-up, if you say like, be more confident, do that. It's like when someone tells you not to worry, you're like, oh yeah, good, I'll stop. Like, thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you, Einstein. That's awesome advice. I thought of that.
But how do you train people to build their confidence, or to have the right mindset to be able to compete at high levels consistently?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's complicated, and like anything else in the health and wellness field, it depends. So it really depends on what the athlete is coming in looking for. So I work with a lot of athletes who struggle with confidence. They're just they don't reach their potential because they doubt themselves. So if there's self-doubt there, automatically my mind as a coach goes to their internal dialogue or their self-talk. How are they talking to themselves, showing up on the court, on the field, on the ice, in the pool? So, and like, I think a lot of people don't know that how we talk to ourselves, our self-talk, is the number one mental skill that's associated with confidence levels. So if I go into a game and I am saying to myself, I got this. This is going to be a great game. I'm prepared. I've practiced all week. I've looked at the scouting report. I'm good. Here we go. Here's an opportunity for me. I'm going to feel pretty good going into the game, and I'll probably be looser physically, and I'll probably play better. If I go into that same game with a very different mentality of, oh my God, this team is so good. They crushed us last year. It's going to be so embarrassing. I'm mortified. I don't feel ready. All of a sudden, my mindset, my emotions, negative, kind of draining. So how we talk to ourselves impacts how we feel emotionally, and how we feel emotionally impacts how we physically show up. So self-talk is like a really big skill I talk with individuals about. It's just, how are you talking to yourselves? And a lot of us don't even pay attention. We just go through life and aren't really monitoring our own internal dialogue. So sometimes it's just slowing down with athletes when I'm talking to them and really taking note of the mental tendencies that they have.
I think that's huge, and that, like, in all aspects of life, it's that self-talk, that perspective that you have. I think that makes a huge difference in whatever you do, because if you only focus on the negative things that happen in life, there are plenty of negatives. It doesn't matter how great you are, you're going to have, things that go wrong and things you have to overcome. And you're right, going into that with the right perspective and the mindset is huge. It definitely takes training. It's like building a muscle or learning a new skill. You have to practice. You have to do it consistently over and over again.
Right. And a lot of the athletes I work with, a lot of the people I talk with in life, myself included, I feel like there's such this critical lens that we look through of ourselves, of the world, of things. Like it's all negativity. And people don't realize how that impacts their quality of life and their experience overall. But you named something really important. You have to be aware of it. So there's skills associated with picking up your own self-talk. Like you need to have a degree of mindfulness, self-awareness, self-reflection to really look at your tendencies mentally and asking yourself, is this helping me or is this hurting me? And so a lot of people, like I always say, like, you wake up in the morning and you look outside and it's cold. It's like, I think my watch said 1 degree when I woke up this morning or something ridiculous.
It was cold.
It was cold. And initially my thought is like, oh my gosh, no, it's so cold. I don't want to go outside. I have to walk to the office today. Like, I don't want to do that. Automatically now, my brain's looking, it uses what's called confirmation bias, looking to prove me right. We don't like unpredictability. We want to be proven correct, proven right. So if I say today's gonna be terrible, my brain's gonna pick up on every single moment that proves that statement to be true. Whereas if I wake up and think, man, it's so cold out, it's 1 degree, I'm so grateful that I can go walk to the gym instead of have to run outside. Or it's so cool, I get to wear that new scarf that I got for Christmas. Or I'm so grateful it's sunny out.
Yeah.
Yes, it's cold and it's sunny out. Or it's gonna be a good day, or I get to help people all day, or whatever you say to yourself, that kind of influences the energy in the rest of the day. So
it definitely
it's
does.
a big skill.
There was something I saw, and I wish I could give the guy credit, but it was a basketball coach who had a player that shot like 2 for 10 or 2 for 30. It was a horrible shooting night.
Yeah.
And he asked the guy, he's like, all right, how many minutes did you play? And I think there were 38 minutes, he said. And he goes, all right, so you missed, it will say 9 shots. He's like, all right, how long does it take you to take a shot? He's like, I don't know, a second. So he's like, you played 38 minutes, you had 9 bad seconds. So you let the other 37 minutes and 51 seconds go to crap because you were so focused on those 9 seconds instead of all the other stuff that you did in the game.
Yeah.
So understanding the positive aspects of what you're doing and the hard work you're putting in and all the and I love that you've got that basketball background, because that's my love right there. I played football and ran track in college, but it's always been basketball is what I loved. And it, like, you can take over a game without scoring a point. You know, you rebound, you box out, you take charges, you just hustle, you dive for loose balls, you bring up the energy of your team. And that's it. People will focus on, I had a terrible shooting night, I scored 6 points, but yet the team won by 10. and you were like that, you were the backbone and the catalyst to bring the emotion up.
Yeah. And this is where being self-aware of your own internal dialogue is really important, and just the way you see things, because what you're describing here is a little bit of a like dichotomous way of thinking, or black and white thinking. Either I am awesome or I suck. Those are the two options. Perfection or failure. That's it. Those two options. And because I missed those 9 shots, failure. And so I also talk with individuals about the importance of both and thinking.
What was that?
Oh, both and.
Okay.
Instead of either or. So both and thinking is like, I both didn't shoot my best and made an impact on defense. I both, had a lousy night on offense and hustled every play. So both and. Very rarely are things in life black and white. Very, very rarely. So it's really important for people to notice if they're those black and white thinkers or those either or thinkers. And, what's an example? Either they love me or they hate me. Either I succeed or I fail. Either I'm rich or I'm poor. Either I'm healthy or I'm unhealthy. I'm fat or I'm skinny. It's like, no, what about all that middle ground? Like, let's really look at this from a better, more whole point of view perspective. And then in addition to that, I'm also thinking, as you're talking about this individual who missed the 9 shots, nothing's perfect again. So I always measure success based on how we respond to setbacks as opposed to not having them. Like,
yes,
I said to an athlete I work with the other day, it kind of just like came out of my mouth. And I'm like, oh, I got to write that down. So I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was like, the elite athletes, don't make 0 mistakes. They just aren't afraid of mistakes, because the mistakes are going to come. And it's really what happens when that mistake is made. I miss my 3. Do I stand there, pout, and like get upset? Or do I crash the board? Do I sprint back on defense? How we respond to life is our responsibility. Very rarely is what happens in life our responsibility. So really responding to things as opposed to either like reacting to them and having this emotional hissy fit, or like judging ourselves based on things that are out of our control. Having a bad night of basketball, maybe the defense is really good. You can't control the defense. You can only control how you show up. Yeah. So those are a couple of thoughts I was having as you were talking.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I mean, you can't always control it. And sometimes you're just off. The form might be there, the shot might be there, and the nights they just don't fall.
Yeah.
And that happens. And you like you said, you got to do other things to just keep hustling.
Yeah.
So which sports are you working with, or is it all athletes?
Yeah, all sorts. I work with teams and with individuals. So I'm working right now, I'm wrapping up my work as, not to be confusing, I'm wrapping up my work right now as a corporate wellness coach. So I work as a coach with corporate employees at a bank right now. So a big global bank. I'll be at Northeastern starting Monday. So it's changing very soon, a couple days. But I work privately as well. I have a private business where I work with athletes. So that includes individual athletes, from skiers to swimmers to basketball players, high school and college level mostly. And then I also work with schools and athletic programs, and I'll go speak at conferences and things like that. So I kind of get the mixed bag, which is lovely.
Yeah, you get a little everything there. You're never bored,
no,
I'm guessing.
Certainly not bored. But
you've got to be very organized to keep track of all this, I'm guessing.
I wish I could show you right now in front of me. So I'm in my office right now. My desk faces out. I can't just face a wall all day. And I have a huge whiteboard on my wall. It's like 3 feet long. And it has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then gridded out from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. Every hour is not filled. I'm not that crazy. But I have to put when I'm working out. I have to put when I'm doing laundry. I'm studying for a new certification right now. I have my clients. I have this call. Like, everything's kind of written in, because if I don't put it in, I'll lose track of something.
Oh, completely. I'm sure you have a giant asterisk and star next to this hour right here.
Actually, in red. Everything else is black. Yeah.
Really? We got red. I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, but I just have to stay organized, or else I even have a note to cancel a physical therapy appointment for later in the week. Like, I have to kind of put everything on there, or else I will forget, because there's a lot going on. And that's just like a skill for myself as a professional, but also for like young athletes and teachers and coaches and humans. Like, we need to stay organized, because if we're not organized, it's very hard to be intentional. So now I can be intentional.
Intentional is a huge word there too. I think that if we can, whoever we're working with in whatever, whatever the goal is, it has to be intentional. If you don't have a goal set, if you don't have some sort of plan in place, your dream might be to make the NBA or NFL or just to play college ball, whatever it happens to be. That's great. But if there's no plan in place and you're not doing things intentionally each day, each week, each month, then you're just it's just a dream, and that's all it is until you can kind of make it your reality.
It's that old cliche. What is it? A goal without a plan is just a wish, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I always encourage individuals to do things on purpose and with purpose. So that's like living intentionally. That's like a nice little catchphrase. I have so many of those like little statements that stick with me. I used to have Post-it notes all along in my office when I was living in Vermont, and all these different like phrases to remember. Where the focus goes, the energy flows. Do things with purpose and on purpose, like different things like that. Because they always kind of stick.
But when I was looking up stuff for this show, I came across a quote, and I'm gonna butcher the name. It's an old Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu, and that's not how you pronounce the last name, Tzu, which it's pronounced like DS. Zhu. Yeah. But he said, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the present.
Yes.
Which I love, because it's really, it couldn't be more accurate. And I think that happens with athletes too. If you're so focused on the fact I missed that shot before, when you're going to take another shot, that's where your mind goes to. And if you can just play in that moment throughout the whole game, things go a heck of a lot better for you.
It's a great insight for you as a teacher, I'm sure, as a trainer, as a coach, as an individual. I often refer to my clients who struggle with that as mental time travelers. So essentially, they're physically in this moment. You and I are in this meeting right now, but maybe mentally I'm thinking about dinner. I'm hungry.
That's not a bad thing to think about.
But then mentally, I'm jumping to the future, which doesn't exist yet. So I'm kind of giving the present moment not my full attention. So how can I possibly have the best moment right now if I'm mentally elsewhere? So understanding if you're someone who tends to mentally time travel, and I like the quote about, I've heard it before, with if you're depressed, you're thinking of the past. If you're anxious, you're thinking of the future. Oftentimes, anxiousness comes from a preoccupation with the future, which is out of our control. So of course you feel anxious, because you can't control the future. You're not there yet. You're here. You also can't go back in the past. So missing a shot is a good example. That individual, again, that we're talking about, who missed the 9 shots. If he or she misses a shot, and then they dwell on the fact that they missed that shot, they're missing the next play on defense. They're missing the opportunity to crash the boards. They're missing the opportunity to kind of respond to what happened. And in the same situation, this individual, if they miss that shot and then they jump to, we're going to lose this game by 2 and it's going to be my fault. We're not at the end of the game yet. We're here. So it's a disservice, and I call it outcome paradox. If you go into a sport game or you miss a shot and you're thinking about the end result of the game, I want to win this game. It matters to me. It's important. If you're thinking about that in this moment, you're taking yourself out of this moment. It's a paradox, because you want a good outcome. Nothing wrong with that. We all want good outcomes, hopefully. But when you're mentally there and focused on that future, the outcome, you're taking yourself out of the moment that's actually going to get you to that outcome. So it's really important to recognize if your mind drifts from the future to the past, and really try to bring yourself back to this moment now. And you can do a lot of different things to do that. Something as simple as taking a big, deep breath, feeling your belly fill with air, releasing air, like feeling physically your air in your body moving, and then mentally focusing on that, bringing your mind and your body in the same place, same time. That's taking you away from that tendency to mentally time travel. So another mantra I have for myself is future.
I'm keeping notes here of all the times where you have these gems you keep throwing out. I don't know if you're a football fan or not, or watch the Bills Ravens game over the weekend, but there was an interview or a press conference where Lamar Jackson was talking at the end. And for those listening who didn't watch the game, at the end of the game, towards the end, Mark Andrews, who's the tight end for the Ravens, fumbled the ball, and the Bills got it back, and then he had a chance to catch a pass at the 2-point conversion to tie the game up, and he dropped it, which is one that he would normally catch. And they were asking Lamar Jackson at the end, and I think another piece of this is looking at your own actions and taking responsibility for how you perform and things that you can learn from it, as opposed to dwelling on the negative. And Jackson, I thought, handled it perfectly, where he started talking about, like, Mark's an incredible player. I did this and I made these mistakes, and these are things I need to learn from in the future, so that we're not in that position where it all comes down to one thing.
Yes.
Which I thought was incredible leadership on his part. And the fact that, yes, bad things are going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. Things aren't going to go the way you want all the time. But it's an opportunity to learn from it and to, make preparations in the future so that you're not going to be making those mistakes again.
Yeah, you use one of my favorite words. Intentional is one of my favorite words. We've already talked about that. The word opportunity is also one of my favorite words. My life mantra is, this is an opportunity to get better. My actual life philosophy, I have my own personal philosophies at the door, but is every moment is an opportunity to make a choice. However, yes. I've kind of workshopped that a little bit. So if something's going wrong or bad, I always say to myself, I've built the habit. This is an opportunity to get better. My friends think I'm so annoying when I'm like, it's an opportunity for us to get better.
You sound like such a third grade teacher right now. I love it.
So, because
is.
My sport now is running. Obviously, I don't play basketball anymore. I'm in my 30s. But I now run, and I train for half marathons, and I'm pretty competitive with them. And I'm always trying to get better, and I follow training plans. And if I see on my watch, it says sprint for 5 minutes, and I'm like, oh, none of me wants to do that. As I'm running, knowing it's coming, my watch tells me, hey, 5 seconds, you're going to be sprinting. All I say to myself simply at this point is, this is an opportunity to get better. It's 5 minutes to get better. Am I going to be perfect? No. Might I be a little lethargic? Sure. But it's an opportunity for me to get better physically and mentally. So I've really, really solidified the habit of saying that whenever something bad happens. So it's again, the old cliche, it's not winning and losing, it's winning and learning. That's kind of what you were alluding to with the game over the weekend. And it's true. Now they learn. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn where you need to improve. You need to have those moments to really kind of take inventory, take accountability, obviously, learn, and then adjust.
Yeah. And I'll see students in class who are so scared to try something difficult, and they'll immediately say, I don't get it. I need help. And I might sound like a jerk sometimes, but I'm like, I'm not helping you right now until you try.
You're
you
a
have
sucker.
to learn
Just kidding.
to struggle.
No.
You have to learn to struggle a little bit, though. That's life, though. It's not, if it's easy, you're not learning anything.
Right.
It's when you have to push yourself past what you're comfortable with, and that's where the learning actually happens.
And that's the hard part, though, is because we're kind of learning to not trust ourselves. Like that student that you're referring to, probably a lot of students that do that.
A lot of them,
The student who does that is essentially saying to themselves, I don't trust myself to attempt this. And then what do they think if I mess up, if I'm not perfect? What are those people going to think of me? Am I going to fail? Are my classmates going to laugh at me? Is my teacher going to think I'm a loser? What's going to happen? And so we learn not to trust ourselves versus, hey, whatever happens, future me can handle it. If I fail this test, the version of me that gets that F will handle it. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And I think there's this big fear of failure that exists. But again, without failure, there's no learning and there's no improving. How boring if we're always doing.
Exactly.
And I remember in high school, this is so random. It was before I worked in this job. Obviously, I was in high school. I was playing basketball. My team was very good. I was in New York and we were in the state, tournament. And I was a very good high school player. But I was very reserved and conservative with how I played. I was very I didn't let loose on the court. I was very particular because I was afraid of failing. And so I remember one practice, I had the ball and I'm dribbling between my legs behind my back, a little step back 3 swish. And my coach was like, excuse me, you have never once done that in a game or practice, but you can. What's wrong with you? How many hours have you spent training that? I'm like, oh, hours, like hundreds of hours probably doing this move. And he's like, why have you not done it in a game? And only now in my adult life, I'm like, because I was so afraid of messing up. So like, I don't know what that life could have been if I didn't fear messing up. And I should have probably tapped in, should have, could have, would have. But if I tapped into that and like faced the fear, who knows? So it's funny. I think back now, and I think that's why I do what I do, because I'm like, I see where I needed it. So learn from me, people. Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense, though, you know? And I have a lot of dorky analogies that I have with the kids, and they're probably like, oh, great, Mr. O's doing this again.
I love it.
But, you know, I think about it like, if you have a goal, if you have something you're trying to achieve, some people, you can liken it to, I don't know, climbing a mountain or something like that. And some people are naturally better at things than others. So they might start further up the mountain and they get to the top. But if you start all the way at the bottom with nothing and you're able to climb that mountain and get all the way to the top, not only did you get stronger by doing that, you had a farther distance to travel, you had to work even harder, you had to be way more consistent. But now the next time you have something really difficult you need to do, you already know you've done something incredibly difficult before, as opposed to the person who it was easy for and they accomplished a little bit. Now, when that person's tasked with something that's incredibly difficult, they're going to have maybe self-doubt and things along that nature.
Absolutely.
Whereas somebody who starts with nothing and achieves that, they're going to have so much more confident. Be so much more confident going forward.
You're spot on with that. Experience is one of those factors that enhances or hurts our confidence. I know I said self-talk is the skill that influences our confidence, but our experiences, I always call it like our wins and losses columns, that always like, that will impact our confidence too. If you experience overcoming something, now you have that skill set. Amazing. You wouldn't have had that if everything was easy all the time. And I pull from that sometimes too. Like running is an interesting sport because you're by yourself for hours a week. So like I'm like by myself all the time running, and I like get a chance to really tap in and train up here, which is fun for me, dorkily. But one of the things that I say to myself also, then this is an opportunity to get better, is I've been through a lot worse than this run. I'm good, you know? So I pull from that now. And you're right.
Yeah. And I did a challenge back, I think it was October, where I sprinted in college. I did hurdles and I didn't run turns around the track. That was not really what I loved doing.
Yeah.
So I thought like, all right, number one, I'm cutting sugar out for a month to see how that feels. Added sugar, like fruits and fruits were fine. But I was also going to run at least a mile a day for the 30 days. And I hated it so much. Like I just running to run. But then we had on, I think it was when we were talking to Emily Cayley, she's a performance dietitian. She was training for the New York Marathon. She says, get past that first mile and then it's actually enjoyable. And I did that a few times. I'm like, you know what? This isn't that bad. Once I get 5 mile one. Yeah. But I just did not enjoy that at all. Yeah. And I forget where I was going with this story because there was a point to it. Yeah. And I completely lost it.
Probably. But I got distracted with your hatred of running.
Yes. It's just not something I look forward to.
But that repetition probably really has helped you. Discipline.
Yeah, no, and I'm a little older than you. I'm in my 40s, but I still play basketball, even though I'm well past my 30s. That I haven't given up on that yet, though.
It's funny. I have a hard time playing like women's league for fun because like I feel like a jerk if I don't try because like I was a pretty good player, but then I feel like a jerk if I try too hard. So it's like really hard for me to find an appropriate balance. I will say though, I played a couple summers ago outside in Alston, which people who are from Boston area kind of know that area, outside of the city. Technically, I guess Boston-ish. But we played this outdoor league, and it was women who, I was like one of the older ones, and it was all women who played in the same athletic conference as me in college. So it was kind of competitive. Nice. It was fun. And for the first time ever, I went into like games and I didn't care about the outcome. I'm not like, I can't miss a shot. I better not mess up. I can't foul out. I can't like, I didn't care enough, and I played great. So I just didn't care. So it taught me, again, all these lessons I'm always like kind of taking in from my own experiences, but it taught me to really keep your eye on the process in this moment. Don't jump, just be here. And if I miss a shot, oh, okay, I didn't shoot high enough. I got to have a higher arc. That's it. Like that's it. So, there was like more like neutrality in my approach where like I wasn't like so emotionally impacted. And so I ended up showing up better. So that's kind of funny. It's my only women's league, and that was years ago. I haven't played since. So I don't know.
Oh, you got to find that one again, though. You know, summer league in Brighton, Alston area. That's got to be competitive.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. But they do like indoor leagues where they like do like the old school like team selection. Like there's captains. I'm like, this is feeling like too much pressure. I got to get out.
Yeah.
So
that would be. There are some men's leagues around here that do that as well. This is just pick up once or twice a week, so it's not that crazy. I did play in it was an over 30 league. I'm 46 now. I was probably 44 at the time.
Yeah.
And there were 20-year-olds in there that I'm trying to cover that are still in college, and I'm like, this is not fair.
Opportunity for you to be better. See that?
Yes. Yeah. No, I've actually like my workouts and stuff, because like I like playing basketball. My son's older now, and he's at the point now where we can actually start playing together. Not during the season, because the last thing I'd want is for him to get injured playing ball with his old man. That would be pretty bad. But now my workouts and my training are more tailored towards mobility, flexibility, like longevity, that sort of thing. I've gotten past that. Oh, I have to be able to lift this much weight for my ego or for whatever it might be. And now it's like, all right, I want to keep moving. I want to be able to do. There are guys in the league that are 75.
Wow.
And they still get up and down the court. And I mean, obviously they're not the fastest,
but they're out there.
They play dirty. I'm not going to lie. They will hold you. They will elbow you, but they're out there playing. That's just part of the game. But 75 years old, I'm like, all right, so if I take care of myself, if I'm intentional with my workouts, as you said, then that can be
30 more years, man. You're halfway there.
Yeah, halfway.
Yeah, that's right. That's so funny.
We'll say that.
Yeah, and
so you run. Yeah. Is there anything else? Any other competitive things that you're doing?
No, I mean, running is one of those things. Like, I didn't get into it like intent. I was one of those people who's like running just to run. Oh, like I played basketball when they told us to get on the line. That was like my biggest nightmare. I never liked running. I think in high school, like twice I ran 1 mile at home, like because I was like, let me go for a run. And it was a couple of years ago, I just got into running, and it was more like I need a goal. I need a goal. I need something that I'm working toward, because working out just to work out for me personally was really challenging. Because I felt like I needed to keep doing more. There was no ultimate outcome I was looking for. And as a woman, I don't know, as a human, as a person, I started focusing on things like I need to be skinnier. I need to have X body fat percentage. And I noticed myself, I had struggles. I noticed myself going down this really unhealthy path. So that's my personal experience. And that's kind of when I was like, I need to work towards something. And so someone in my past had suggested I got into running and training for running, like races. I'm competitive. I'm kind of type A, like it works. And I was like, I don't know, running to run is like my nightmare. But I started doing it, and I kind of fell in love. So for me, that's like been a blessing, running. It's been mentally like such a great opportunity to pay attention to myself and just kind of have conversations. You're out there for hours. Like I have to think the whole time. So I'm like, you don't know how my brain operates, putting thoughts together, physically enduring, like maybe mentally I wasn't feeling good, and kind of like utilizing that. And I feel like every day I'm given the opportunity to get better at something. So are you reflective when you run, or do you listen to music or podcasts, or is it just whatever you're feeling that day? The first ever half marathon I ran was not I didn't train. I just did it with my friend. We kind of signed up as like partners to do a half marathon. And I listened to a podcast it was a 2-hour podcast. Are you familiar with James Lawrence or the Iron Cowboy? Have you heard of him?
Yes. Yeah.
I listened to an interview of his after he
Yep.
completed his first 50 Ironman, 50 states in 50 days. And so I was listening to that the entire run because I'm like, if he can do that, I can run 13 miles. I'm good. So that was my first time. Now I have to be much more intentional. And so I listen to music, and it has to be a certain cadence of music because I've injured myself. I have broken my hip running from like bad form. So I have to
Really?
be, yeah, so I have to be very careful with how I run, like not just what I'm doing, but how I'm doing it. So I have to be intentional. So I listen to music that has a beat that keeps my pace, like my
Oh,
steps in the
okay.
right way. But I'm extremely reflective when I'm running. So I'm barely even listening to the music. I'm just like
Oh, I
in my
gotcha.
own space, processing things, thinking. When I think about the running and like how it's hard or whatever, it's not a fun experience. So
But if it's a time where you can like that, I think it's important for everybody to take that self-reflection time. And with you're running by yourself, there's no other, I mean, you could listen to music, but you've got time right then to do that. So
yeah,
that's a good.
it's giving me time. And then in addition to that, I also am a big journaler. I journal every
Okay.
morning and I sometimes in the evening, depending on the day, but I journal every day. I've been journaling since 2009. I have all my journals still. So at the end of the year, I read back my year as if it's a book. It's kind of weird. It's a cool experience, but I'm
Wow.
like very self-reflective in that way of I want to read back. What did I learn this year? What keeps happening? What are the patterns that are not helpful to me? How can I change in the future? What is something I've learned that I can take with me? Where did I grow? I really try to reflect. So I write out what I'm experiencing day to day, feelings, thoughts. If there's a lyric that kind of strikes me, I'm always writing in my journal. And again, that's more designated space for up here. So I encourage
Yeah.
every person I talk to. Not everyone likes journaling. People are afraid it's going to be found. People are just kind of weird about finding out what they're thinking. I do strongly recommend though a journal practice.
I never like journaling. I've done it every now and then, but I
Yeah.
love the idea of reading it back
Yeah.
after a year. It's
Yeah.
like your own book
Yeah.
that you've had and that you know, and
Exactly.
yeah, that,
It's just one of those things for me. It's like giving myself credit and validation for what I've been through. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
And like acknowledging like, no, that was real. Or oh no, you actually experienced that. Or hey, you've grown so much this year. Look how you used to be and look how you are now. Or the best is like when you see the same patterns over and over again, I'm like, gotta learn this lesson, man. I'm still on the same thing. So like one of the biggest examples, I knew my light was just gonna die. I was trying to plug it in. Uh,
yeah,
one of the biggest examples that I always think about when it comes to like recognizing my own internal dialogue, how I operate internally is the word should. I say the word should a lot. Oh, I should have done that. I shouldn't have done that. I should have said that. Should. And there's this like funny like trope, like you stop shoulding all over yourself. And it's like the word should is essentially rooted in like shame. You know what I mean? It's like saying like you did it wrong. You're wrong. You made a mistake. You're not there we go. You're not right. So should is like such a standard we've created. Like according to who says I shouldn't be
yeah.
sad about that? Kind of like to your point earlier when you said people say just cheer up. Oh, thank you.
Don't
It's not
worry.
about not having that feeling. It's about understanding the feeling, recognizing it, and creating a thought that creates the next feeling. So it's how we respond to the feeling. And so with the word should, it's essentially saying you're wrong for having a feeling. And it's like feelings are meant to be felt. So now in my journal, whenever I write the word should, I circle it. I'm like, hey, there it is again. I've gotten to the point now through practice that right as my pen hits the paper and I put the letter S, I'm like, no, I have to redirect myself. So that's something that I've like, that's something that I've like really connected with myself on too, is just like noticing the power of language and how, you know, how what we say to ourselves impacts us. And the word should never makes me feel good. Never has
Yeah.
the word should made me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Like I should have done this. Then you're kind of, you got that negative emotion towards it. Like
Oh yeah.
I made a mistake or I didn't take advantage of an opportunity or whatever
Right.
it happens to be.
Yeah. So I think like again, like a lesson that like all people need to know is just to be nicer to ourselves, even if that means being neutral. Like, oh, I made a mistake there. Oh, I shot pretty poorly. My percentage was like off. What can I learn about that? Like, that's being kind to yourself. You can be encouraging and critical, and you can do all these things at the same time. But just to kind of scarf it up as like, man, that was a terrible shooting night. I suck. I'm not going to shoot next game. How are you getting better by doing? You're not.
Yeah.
So really, like being nicer to ourselves as we navigate life. It's hard. So figuring out, what we need, how we're feeling, what's going on in here. If we ignore it, it doesn't just go away. This light is driving me nuts. If we ignore our feelings, they don't just go away. They're still there. So
I will say, though, I do need to call myself out every now and then if I notice I'm being lazy or I'm developing bad habits or something like that. And my self-talk is not nice when I realize that, and I won't repeat the exact words I usually use on here.
Can you give like a kind of an idea of what you say?
Like if I've noticed, I'll just use going to the gym, and I was going through the motions for a couple weeks. I'd show up, I'd do it, and like I wasn't pushing myself to improve as much as I should. The reps weren't great. The volume wasn't great. It was just going through the motions. And, I'm just basically wasting my time checking off a box that I went to the gym, as opposed to being very intentional. I'm going to keep using that word now because it's good, but like intentional with every rep, intentional with the workouts I'm choosing and the time that I'm there. Even like my rest, I've started saying like set timer for 90 seconds if that's the time between reps. And it just makes a big difference in the outcomes I've noticed over the last probably month or so since I last yelled at myself have been a lot better. And it's not like you're terrible, you're an idiot. It's like, all right, you're better than this. You should be able to do more.
Yes. Well, as you were talking, I was like, there's such a difference in the experience of someone saying to you, hey, you're not reaching your potential. You are so much you have so much potential there and we haven't yet tapped it. Versus you're wasting your time. Feels heavy, feels critical. It doesn't feel helpful. But thinking like, I have so much potential in me. It's time to kind of tap in. That feels better and more empowering. So you're probably going to be more motivated to then go to the gym. So even with the self-talk thing, I describe our self-talk as, those like cartoons of the devil and the angel on the shoulders?
Yes.
So like the devil, do the wrong thing, angel, do the right thing. And the person in the middle is like, who do I listen to? I think of our self-talk like that. I don't love devil and angel as language. So instead I say we have an inner coach and an inner critic. And so that inner critic, boo, you suck. You missed that shot. You're wasting your time at the gym. You're such a loser. Why are you even here? You're going to gain weight. You're so out of shape. You're such a poser for being a trainer, but not working out yourself. Whatever the nasty stuff you say to yourself. So the inner critic says a lot of should. You should do this. You shouldn't do that. Negative, pushes you down when you're already down. Like, not helpful. Inner coach is not inner cheerleader. Not inner cheerleader. Like, yeah, you're the best always. No, you're not showing up at the gym mentally. You're physically there, but mentally you're not there. Yeah. So the inner coach, hey, I'm noticing this. You're showing up physically. Make the most of your time, man. Like, you're here already. You've done the hard part. You're showing up. Now mentally match that. That's inner coach. That's encouraging. That's uplifting. That's like, I see you. I see your potential. I see your greatness. Let's be that. So a lot of us choose that inner critic. A lot of us choose that inner critic. So for you, it sounds like you kind of have a mix of both where you're like,
oh, I definitely get both.
But come on, here we go. Like kind of this back and forth. But for young people, noticing if you're always listening to that inner critic, because the coach gets quieter if we're always listening to the critic. So really reminding yourself you have a choice. You can either listen to that critic and absorb it, internalize it, or you can say, thank you, critic, but coach, what do you have to say? That's a skill called reframing. From the negative, not helpful, to the more helpful. Same situation, you're just painting it in a different light. So, and
I like how you said that when you listen to the critic more, the coach shuts up. And I think that's in a lot of aspects of life. If you're always And we know those people who are the negative ones who complain about everything, they're going to see the negative all the time.
That's that confirmation
because they don't
bias.
take.
Yeah.
What was that?
The confirmation bias that we talked about at the beginning, where you confirm that to be true.
Yeah, and if that's all you look at, that's all you find, and the positive piece or that inner coach you don't hear anymore, and that happens so much, and I again, not to keep bringing up students or anything like that, but I see it in them so much that the ones who even like socially with friends, it's like they're whispering about me, and I'm like, how do you know what they're whispering about? You can't even, but they looked over here. I'm like, it's a giant classroom and you just dropped your book. Like, that's why they looked over here. And it's tough to do when you're in that space where you're just focusing on that critic or the negative to get out of it. But
it's like wearing sunglasses all day. It's like there. It's always kind of shading your view. So our individuals, I guess, not just athletes, students, humans, kids, adults, whatever, people who assume the worst, that person must be blank, must be talking about me. They must hate me. They must be making fun of me over there because they looked. You're making this story up in your head. If you're making up the story, you might as well make it a good one. You might as well.
That's true.
Like, it's amazing.
That is, I like
they're
that.
They're talking about me because they're so jealous of my hair, Or...
well, nobody says that about me, but that's okay.
And me either. But I think a lot of times we just make up these worst case scenarios in our head. And then guess what we do? We make them come true. So even again, I know I keep bringing self-talk back. Obviously, it's a very important skill. But as a point guard, we'll use basketball analogy. Dribbling the ball up the court, and I see the best defender coming up to guard me. If I say to myself, don't turn it over, they're going to steal it. I can't turn it over. You're probably going to turn it over. Versus, all right, best defender's coming at me. I got to protect the ball. Very different. Or I got to tap into my ball handling. I'm glad I did slalom last week. Or whatever it is. But it's how we shape the experience. So that student looking over and saying, they're talking about me, they don't like me, you're making it up. What about instead they looked over. And that's it.
That's
or
I try to get them to know that this doesn't sound nice, but nobody really cares about anybody else. You're so focused on your own stuff.
And there's another phrase that I like a lot, and it's every event is neutral. And this is maybe too big for your students, but every event is neutral until you place your perception on it. So it's snowing out today is a very neutral statement. It's snowing out today. It just is. If I say, oh, it's going to be so cold, I don't want to go out there, I'm placing perception now. So that student saw Susie look over at her. Neutral. Susie looked at me.
Yeah.
But then the added perception of she must be talking about me because you're adding in details that don't exist. So keeping things very neutral is always really helpful. Or I have a bad race. That was not my best race. That means I'm a terrible runner. And it's just a race. So I think keeping things neutral is actually a skill that's difficult, objectivity a little bit. We put our own subjective spin on things, which is why social media scares the heck out of me, because we're comparing our internal subjective experience to what people are showing objectively. Two very different things. So that student, you could just kind of name it as oh, Susie looked at me. Period. End of statement. Next.
Yes.
But it's hard to do that when you're emotionally.
It is. And they're definitely at an age where, adolescents are hitting and everything else. So I get it.
They're learning to compare and everything else, of course. There's a lot of emotions stirring up in there.
Yeah.
But it's really important with that is I always, again, tell people it's not about not feeling. You're going to feel embarrassed. You're going to feel disappointed. You're going to feel overwhelmed, stressed, powerless, whatever, excited. You're going to have these feelings. And I think the worst advice to give anyone is, well, just cheer up. Just don't feel that. Well, stop feeling that. It's they're already feeling it. That, and then stuffing it doesn't help. It makes it worse, and your body holds on. So instead, acknowledging the feeling and then choosing what you want to say to yourself next. I feel self-conscious because Susie just looked at me. Susie's observant. That's the next thought. So now I'm kind of not as attached to it. So really choosing how you talk to yourself again to influence how you're feeling, but it's about noticing the feeling. So there's an acronym that might be helpful. Another one, I'm just like, but
I love these.
so there's an acronym I use a lot with my clients, whether it's a therapy client or a coaching client, but it's the word rain, like rain falling from the sky.
Yeah.
The letter R stands for recognize. So recognize what's going on inside of you, outside of you. Recognize the situation, how you're feeling, what you're thinking. Pay attention, mindfulness. You need that mindfulness to recognize. Because like if Susie is looking at this young girl or young boy and they're not even noticing it's bothering them, it's going to sit there. Whereas if they can say, that just like really made me feel a pit in my stomach. I'm insecure now. Recognize. A is very important. It's a two-parter. It's accept and allow. Accept that you're feeling insecure and allow it for a second. Allow yourself to feel insecure. Not, I shouldn't feel insecure about that. The truth is, the neutral statement, you feel insecure. That's okay. So allowing yourself to feel it, if we push it away and ignore it, it's still there somewhere. We have to feel our feelings. And it's like whack-a-mole. If you ignore your feelings and push it down over here, it pops up over here higher. You might as well face it now. So accept and allow your feelings. I is the word investigate. So being like your own detective, where you ask yourself, okay, have I felt this before? Do I like this feeling? What has worked in the past to help me get through this feeling? What's something I can do now to help myself through this? What do I need right now? Really getting kind of to the crux. And it's investigate. It's like you're being your own detective, trying to figure out what it is that you need. Investigate the situation and what you need to get through it. And then N is nurture. So do the thing that's going to help. So I use that a lot as like a framework when it comes to like a mindfulness practice, like in a more kind of quick, succinct way. So like, my fists are like really tight and my stomach hurts. I'm stressed out. Okay, I'm stressed. If I just take a deep breath and take a step away from my computer, I'll be okay. And then I go step away from my computer, take a deep breath. That's it. It's like that simple, but it's a good self-care practice.
Listening to that, I know my school counselor, she listens to this too.
Oh, good.
That she's going to eat that up.
It's
like
perfect.
that. I feel like
perfect. Nothing's perfect, but it's good. It's really good to kind of, I was taught it by a supervisor of mine years ago. I have not stopped using it since.
It makes perfect sense too. And it's a systematic approach to something that can be overwhelming, and it breaks it down into smaller chunks that are manageable.
And it applies to life. It applies to school, social life, sport. If an official makes a bad call and I'm mad at that official, I could dwell on it and not even notice I'm dwelling on it. Or I could recognize, that really made me mad. If I just get back in defense, get a stop, I'll be over it. And then I go get back in defense and get over it. So it can be applied to a lot of different things. But I use it personally.
If you could help athletes to stop complaining to refs about missed calls, I don't think that's possible. But it would be so refreshing to not see that.
I've got to say, I'm not a big LeBron James fan. I think he's an amazing person off the court. Like, he seems very philanthropic, very kind. He's a family man. There's so many positive qualities. I can't stomach watching that guy play basketball because the whole time he's complaining. I'm like, I am rooting for you to fail. Like, that's what I'm.
Yes, exactly.
So I feel bad, but it's a lot of the elite athletes are like that. I'm a Michael Jordan like fan through and through. He would complain. Everyone complains, but you know what has helped? I was a complainer when I was younger. I was very reactive. My parents actually like threatened to take me to anger management classes, which is so funny. I'm like not like that at all. I'm like pretty like bubbly. But I remember my dad pointed out one of my teammates who was such a Eeyore, so like negative all the time. He goes, when you roll your eyes or when you stop trying or when you complain to that ref, that's what you look like. That moment, I was like, oh, that's an embarrassment. That's an insult if I've ever heard of one. So sometimes just like objectively seeing it or watching film, educating. And that's a lot of like emotion regulation. Again, it's noticing your feelings, having the feeling, but not letting the feeling have you. You can have a feeling and respond to it. You don't need to react to it. Like driving in a car, if a car cuts you off, the reaction is like middle finger up, riding their tail, honking on the horn. The response is the same emotion, like nervous, annoyed, but choosing to switch lanes.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times we can learn to respond to our emotions a lot better. So the refs, big emotional trigger for a lot of athletes. If you can learn to like recognize it and respond to it, way more powerful than reacting to it, because now you're taking yourself out of the game.
Yeah, that you have no control over that.
Right.
They're going to make mistakes too, and you can't say a game is lost because of a ref, because I'm sure there are 100 other things that each individual could do for a different outcome.
Absolutely.
But funny you say the LeBron, Michael Jordan thing, because we actually were doing debates now, and I let the kids pick the topic, and it's LeBron versus Jordan as the GOAT, and I'm like, I feel strongly one way, but I'm not gonna show my bias.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it should. We'll have you come in for that debate so you can see it.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, it's funny that you can see people's mental skill. I'm biased because that's what I work. That's my body of work. But I watch athletes not for how many shots they make. I mean, obviously that's always impressive. But I watch for how they respond to things. Are they enjoyable? Do I want to cheer for them? Are they having fun out there? I remember my basketball coach in college when I was being recruited. She said something to me that stuck with me. She said when she's recruiting, I don't think I accepted my offer yet, or it was very early in the process. I forget. But I remember she said to me that when she's recruiting, she doesn't look for the athletes that make every shot. She actually looks for the athletes that miss their shots to see what happens next.
Yes.
So recovery time. So that always stuck with me. I think I missed a fast break layup when she was watching one of my high school games. And I remembered what she said of wait, she is looking for how I bounce back from this moment. I'm going to sprint back on defense.
Yes, exactly.
As opposed to, I'm complaining.
Yeah, you walk
I really
back.
wanted to do, but so that's good advice in general. But I love watching the mental side of sport. It is so fascinating.
It is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, Nicole, I've stolen about an hour of your time here.
A long time here, yeah.
I feel like we could go for another hour pretty quickly because that went by fast.
It did.
But thank you so much. How can people find you or get in touch with you if they want to?
Yeah, that's a great question. My website is in flux right now, so I'm not going to give that. But they can find me on, I sound so corporate saying on LinkedIn. That's where we connected though, but I'm on LinkedIn. I also have Instagram. I do kind of a mix of personal life and work life. So it's kind of this combination, but if you just search my name,
I'll put all the stuff in the show notes.
Yeah. But I'm always up for hearing from people and giving any sort of insights or whatever people need. So,
when's your next race coming up?
Good question. I just did one on New Year's Day. You want to hear this? Oh my gosh, this is an embarrassing story to add more time.
Nice.
But I hurt my knee during this training cycle, I should say, and a couple other weird injuries that I normally don't face. I broke my hip a couple years ago. That was my big injury. Everything else has been pretty fine, but I hurt my knee, and so I was but I need to run this race. I can't not run this race. I've been training for 16 weeks. So the race was canceled. It was in Florida on the 4th of January, but it was at St. Petersburg, which was hit by the hurricane. So the race course was destroyed. So I found another race in Massachusetts on the 1st. I was I'll just run New Year's Day. What a great way to start the year. Yeah. So already setbacks of this brand new race. So I went in with the mentality of try not to PR. Do not attempt to be perfect in sprint. Just finish this race. No injury, no pain, able body. Be grateful for the moment. And so I journaled that morning about how I'm type A. I'm going to go in and want to beat everyone. So I was I'm just going for the experience. And so I went to the race and I was kind of in that headspace of just enjoy yourself. It's another race. You don't need to win every race. You don't need to PR every race. The race I did last January, I won. So I was I need to win again.
Oh, yeah.
So I really trained my mind not to focus on PRing and just focus on enjoying. And so I went to the race feeling pretty good. I was listening to music and talk about getting caught away in your thoughts or lost. I took a wrong turn on the course and I ran an extra mile. So I ran 14.1 miles.
Nice.
I didn't know. And I was they marked the course wrong. I was they messed up. And then I ran by this guy and I'm are you running the half marathon? He said, yes. And I'm running next to him. I'm what does your watch say? He's mile 9. Why? What's yours say? I said, mine 10. So I ended up running an extra mile. But because I had trained myself to not be so fixated on the outcome, I laughed it off, had a great time.
That's
So
good.
yeah, but
That's good to hear.
yeah. So to answer your question though, I don't know. I have to schedule something. I'm kind of debating scheduling a full marathon. I've never ran a full.
Oh.
I want to get my half marathon under an hour and a half first, but we'll see. Maybe I'll just do a full. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, so I haven't scheduled anything.
You seem excited though.
Yeah, I love it. It's fun. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Well, when you do, we want to hear how it goes.
Oh,
So you got to let
okay.
us know when it's coming up.
Hopefully better than this past one. But
Yeah, try not to run an extra mile.
You know, it's funny. I ended up finishing 6th in my division still with an extra mile. So I would have won if I didn't do the extra mile. But because I trained myself, I prepared myself, I was fine with it. So lesson for all. But I will let you know how the next one goes.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Nicole. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.